Hello and welcome to today's webcast, Insight and Anglepoint, Managing SPLA Licensing, brought to you by our Insight Managed Services team and Anglepoint. I am Claire Folger, your CSP Marketing Coordinator at Insight, and I will be your moderator today. Before we begin, I wanted to cover a few housekeeping items. This webcast is designed to be completely interactive between you and the presenters. The webcast console you are looking at can be completely customized. You can resize or move any of the windows that you have open. If you have any questions during the webcast, you can click on the Q&A widget at the bottom and submit your question. All questions from this webcast will be captured, and there will be a Q&A during the last few minutes of the presentation. If you are experiencing any technical difficulties, please visit the webcast help guide by clicking on the question mark icon below the presentation window. The help guide covers common technical issues. I would now like to turn this presentation over to our presenters, Rylan and Chris. The floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Claire. Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Campbell. I am one of the presenters today. I come from a company called Anglepoint, and my colleague Rylan is from this.
Thank you. This is Rylan Grotice. I'm a manager of SAM and Managed Services here at Insight. In today's call and webinar, we really want to be able to speak to a few key items. We are going to have the questions maintained till the end, but a few items that we just want to discuss over the agenda, some key items that we feel will be integral to help clients as they look to better manage their SPLA agreements. And some of that, the reason why we want to bring Anglepoint to the table today as a partner and really provide some of this best-in-class consulting as it applies to the SPLA contracts and helping clients getting more efficient, better reporting, and really to avoid those nasty Microsoft audits. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Chris. Chris, take it away.
So just a little bit about me. So I work for Anglepoint. I've been here for 6 months now. Prior to that, I was working at Deloitte over here in the UK. I managed the SPLA compliance program there for at least 5 years, if not more. And I've seen SPLA projects from their infancy all the way through. Prior to that, I worked and did a little bit actually building a SPLA platform in a very small environment all the way from the ground up. I've seen a mixture of doing it and auditing it and advising on it over the years. Why Anglepoint? Why has Insight invited us? Just a little bit, my colleague Tony is going to talk a little bit about why Anglepoint, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits of the background of SPLA, what we're going to look at today.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great, thank you. So appreciate you joining the webinar today. My name is Tony Franz. I work with Chris at Anglepoint. Quickly to introduce Anglepoint, we are, we are the leading provider of SAM technology asset management services to the global Fortune 2000. Our services focus primarily on driving cost optimization, risk mitigation, and then strategic planning within cloud, SaaS, enterprise software, and hardware estates, really focused on ITAM. So our bread and butter is really managed services, but we also have ad hoc services around SPLA, licensing, cybersecurity, really anything. And so if you're interested in learning more, feel free to visit our site at anglepoint.com. Chris, back to you.
So today we're talking about SPLA, and Insight have invited lots of hosting providers. So I'm not going to go through the very basics of what SPLA is, because I'm sure you're all well aware of it already. The way I like to see SPLA, though, is it's Microsoft's licensing program when there's nothing else that seems to fit. They don't really know whether you can license it internally, you might be making a profit on the licensing, you might be hosting some sort of service, it might be something obvious like infrastructure as a service or platform as a service. And then it might be something that fits somewhere in between the two, and you're not sure whether it's internal or external. And then these are some of the various different things that people have told me over the years about how they see their environment. I like the third one of being a trusted partner within the organization. Where I used to work before Deloitte, we used to be the entire IT department of our client, and they basically just handed everything over to us. And hosting providers are sort of do the same sort of thing on a much larger scale. So you have to be very careful about what you're doing and protecting various different customer interests. And then you've got to think about all the different industries and fields, healthcare, different types of data to say defense, etc. So it's a fascinating program, and it gets very complicated very fast. So I know we mentioned the word audit first, but I put that as the fourth challenge that I see. The first challenge is customer data. I feel that one of the first things I ever heard about SPLA was a hosting provider once said to me, "We are a data company. All we do is protect and host and hold client data. That's all we ever do." And ultimately, how you protect, use, and manage that data will define whether you succeed or fail as a hosting provider, and how that interacts with all the various different licensing and managing the different regulations of different countries and different entities like the EU or the US. It's incredibly complex. Obviously, service provider use rights. I'm sure loads of us have spent a long time reading and getting very confused by the stuff. Microsoft's now put it online, and they're about to start changing it depending on which geographic region you're sitting in, with the announcement from last week. Third one, dynamic. So each end customer is different. And one of the things we used to have to explain during the audits was you can't extrapolate a Microsoft licensing for SPLA like you can with end-user licensing. In end-user licensing, you can sort of say, we have 10 PCs, 10 workstations. 8 of them have Office because we license Office for every workstation. So the other 2 are probably going to have Office too. In a SPLA platform, you cannot say customer A has 10 servers with SQL on, therefore customer B will have 10 servers with SQL on too. It's just absolutely impossible to say that 2 customers will have exactly the same solution and exactly the same product deployed on exactly the same number of devices. And then customers, because they're third parties, even internally, your company change staff every month, bring new projects on, remove them. So SPLA environments change all the time. And managing those changes brings a huge amount of risk mitigation and also a huge amount of profit and sale opportunity and increased revenue. Because if you're making sure that you're bringing in the revenue that's changing, then obviously you're doing a lot better than just charging a flat fee that will potentially lower or diminish over time. Audits, obviously, they do need to be mentioned in all things to do with asset management, because they are genuinely seen by vendors as a revenue stream, not just a protection of intellectual property and things, but they are actually a revenue stream as well. Historical reporting. Historical reporting, because audits go back 3, 5 or more years, and then of course they take a year or 2, and so suddenly you're at 7, 8 or 9 years. Historical reporting becomes a very large perspective of it. If you have a hosting provider, if you have a customer who's left you over a year ago, can you genuinely put your hand up and say that you know what was out there for that customer? But the auditor will ask you, so you do sort of need to know. And then finally, the challenges. Bring your own licensing. Now, recently, obviously, we all know that Microsoft have rules about software assurance, what you can bring into these various different platforms. And then recently as last week, they've now produced a new EU policy declaration where they're now changing the requirements depending on where you're sitting. So new European cloud providers are currently being given first time ever new rules that are not being applied elsewhere. They haven't released the style or the terms for how this is going. It was just released last week. But now, bring your own licensing in Europe will be very different to bring your own licensing in the US or in APAC. So this is something that is constantly changing and always was very difficult. In practice, how do these manifest themselves? So my first one, reporting based on billing data. So a lot of the hosts I have seen and worked with over the years receive, like the salesperson will sell 20 user licenses per month or 10 servers per month, and that's all they'll ever charge. And I remember seeing one where a customer had one line item in his internal billing system, which equated to one license, one Windows Server license for 48 servers. And then when we finally drilled down into that, why that happened, we saw that one line item was something like $20,000 that was being charged. So he was charging for all that information, but not counting what was deployed. So that reporting based on billing data, people think is all about users, but sometimes it can also be on what you'd think would be the simple one processor, one server type situations. Licensing varies between dedicated and shared. Shared environment is something that Microsoft determines and defines, and so it's very important. And licensing now changes between those two environments. So it's dedicated to one customer, shared between customers, and it's at the physical level rather than at the infrastructure as a service or the virtual machines not dedicated to one customer. And now, as I said, as of last week, it now changes between a shared environment in Europe and a shared environment elsewhere. Hosting SPLA and internal servers in the same environment. So you do get some internal licenses as part of the SPLA and some licenses for internal use. And then it says, so long as you pay for them. And then the customers, of course, turn around and say, but those are internal. And then are they part of the managing the platform? Are they doing something that is for the benefit of the company, like the company's own internal email, for example, in which case you're self-hosting? So there's three different areas within hosting SPLA and internal servers in the same environment. And there's lots of areas where you could trip up. Not restricting user access, which is one of the ones that we see often, even now. And it goes along with the first one. If people just open the environment up to the end customer users, or the end customer has access to do it themselves, which is also a big issue. Reporting based on long license metrics, sometimes we see it. SQL SAL versus SQL core licenses is something that customers still do. Going back to my friends in sales, this one SAL license costs a lot less than one core license. So I have seen numerous salespeople sell one SAL license per processor or cores now, and only getting picked up when projects with people such as myself. Bringing their own licensing, which I've touched on already. And then not reporting servers or users in the month that access is actually removed. So this one is, if you're on your way to a dynamic software asset management program on your SPLA environment, this one still trips up some hosters that I've worked with in the past because they stop the billing when the customer stops, and they don't pay the last month when they take the environment. think I've scared you enough now. So let's talk about how Anglepoint and Insight can help. I'll probably ask Rylan if he wants to say a few words after I finish this slide as well. So Anglepoint has two programs that we do in this area. The first one, the SPLA reporting health checks. These fit into two categories. One where we look at your SPLA, your current processes, do a point-in-time reporting assessment, and see what is actually out there and what's deployed, and compare that to what you reported, say, the month before, just to see how well the environment is being managed already. We also look at quite a lot of unusual hosted environments, like I mentioned earlier, where you might have something that you're not sure is even a SPLA platform or should be licensed through SPLA or should not be licensed through SPLA. And in the past, I've been given quite a few unique scenarios in these health checks to come and answer. Because obviously the idea being if you can mitigate the risk and move the environment into your enterprise agreement, CSP licenses, then there's significant cost savings to be had. But you have to be sure that the environment you have fits in the right box. It doesn't fit in the SPLA box, but it fits safely inside the end customer licensing type boxes. So SPLA reporting health checks cover all sorts of different things such as that. And then the managed services, we take the information from the health check and we build on it across the term. So we do them from 1 to 3 years, depending on particular client preferences. And then we report on all of their SPLA licenses in an outsourced way. And we may look at it in at a high level, working with their internal teams. And in other circumstances, we may be the outsourced partner who does everything other than the procurement element of purchasing the licenses from companies such as Insight. We also look at ad hoc licensing guides. We work with our clients for longer-term plans, such as O365 migrations, license optimization, all sorts of stuff like that work within the duration of a managed service. Ryan, do you want to make any comments here?
Yes, thank you, Chris. So the way that I really want our Insight clients to look at this is they're already familiar with our SPLA team that assists them with answering questions about SPUR, the product use rights within the SPLA, and how to properly report, and gives that, is an email or assistance from that perspective. But look at these services as taking it to that next level, really looking and taking a deeper dive at that health check level, and then not changing the methodology to which you report for the SPLA managed service. It would still go through Insight, but being able to have that greater assistance and ongoing consultation for those recommendations for optimization and how you configure, as well as having suggestions around those contractual idiosyncrasies that can best help you. So imagine that you have that first line of defense is our Microsoft SPLA team, and then you are able to look at higher levels of assistance in managing and optimizing your SPLA environment. So that's the best way I would like to look at that and how these health check and managed services can help out our SPLA clients. So thank you, Chris. Appreciate that.
So some very, very high-level examples of what we deliver on the health check. This is a PowerPoint version that we see. The health checks are very tailored to what the customer needs to answer. So this is just one particular example. And you can see, obviously, cost savings, both from the mitigation of risk and the optimization of licensing as well. call-outs of big risks and simple things, and of course, recommendations for how to solve them in the simplest way possible, and whether these things are easy to do in one go or whether they would be part of a longer-term project that the client would go and do on their own and then invite us back to do another health check in a year's time. Some clients do that, and the clients have moved it on to a managed service. It's entirely, the nice thing about the health check is it's entirely customizable to what the client needs to answer, to what you need to answer. So if you have a nuanced idiosyncratic environment, then we'll look at whether there's optimization or de-risking opportunities there, whether that answers your specific questions, all the way to the other side where you simply have an infrastructure environment and you want to see whether you are counting the basic licenses right. And what you counted last month is what we would have counted if we were doing it. So very simple, very, very customized. Benefits of working with Insight and Anglepoint. I've mentioned reduced spend quite a few times because it's not just about risk mitigation. At the end of the day, you're a business to make money. Risk mitigation lowers the money you spend, but reducing spend and growing your business means that you'll be in business. It means you all have jobs, and that's what's really important. So growing your business is one of the big things that we try and focus on rather than just risk mitigation, audit mitigation, etc. Minimizing risk is obviously up there because it is important in any software asset management program, and it is part of your ITIL or ISO dynamic program type thing, so it is a thing. And being a trusted service provider, as I said, we understand your data companies, you're managing some of the most important and risky data in the world for the biggest and brightest companies in the world. At the end of the day, you have to be trusted to do that well. And if you can demonstrate that you're trusted in one more area, you're always on the right path, and your clients will feel more comfortable with you. Finally, for our Q&A, a quick case study. So this was a health check again. So this was a 1 month project. I think it took slightly longer than a month, but essentially a health check. And what I like to notice here, so obviously cost avoidance in SPLA. So it's a serious amount of money, the risk mitigation element. But the second result in the middle is one I'd like to call out. Demonstrated the immediate value of closer integration between the SAM and infrastructure team. So we identified that there was a significant disconnect between the people who were reporting and had the licensing knowledge and the people who managed the various platforms. And at the start of the project, these people, the SAM team, would go away and ask the questions, and then a week later they get the response back from the infrastructure team. At the end of the project, I had the infrastructure team and the SAM team both asking me questions at exactly the same time and talking to each other about how they'd already answered loads of the things that I'd raised. And that is the sort of it's not a tangible value-based. You can't say of the 593K, such and such an amount comes from that specific thing. But what it means is it would bring the grow your business bit, the trusted advisor bit, and the reduced spend bit, that sort of thing. That's where it comes from. And that's what we try and bring out in the health check, rather than just baselining you had 1,000 servers and 800 licenses. It's more about giving you a more holistic view of how you're doing, answering any specific questions you've got, looking at those idiosyncratic environments, and helping you move forward as a business. Before I go into the Q&A, Rylan, do you have, or Claire, do you have any comments? Rylan, please.
At the moment, I think I'm good for my commentary. So I think if there's no more items from yourself, I think we can move to the question and answer session.
Yeah, and if anyone has any questions, you can go ahead and just type those into the Q&A chat so that we can see them.
Mm-hmm. While we wait for those questions, Claire, can you just kind of reiterate the best way for clients or account executives to reach out to us if they have any additional items or questions or would like to go further into this offering?
Yes, you can contact I think the guys here via email, and we will send out a follow-up email once this webinar is over, giving you access to the on-demand version of this, and then there will be some links for you to reach out if you have further questions and want to have further conversations.
Thank you, Claire. Appreciate that.
Of course. Well, it doesn't look like we have any questions coming in. So if there are no further questions, we can wrap this up. And thank you, everyone, for attending. And we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Claire, for organising it, and Ryan for presenting with me, and everyone else for attending.
Yes, thank you very much for your time. Look forward to any commentary, questions, or follow-up that you may present to us.